I'm pleased to welcome Brian King, who is going to be doing a presentation that's entitled The Role of Relationships in Successful Adulting with Autism Spectrum Disorder. Brian coaches parents and educators on strategies for motivating and communicating better with members of the Asperger's and ADHD communities. He has a master's degree in social work, and he has Asperger's, ADHD, and dyslexia. He's also the father of 3 sons with Asperger's and ADHD. He's done a lot of keynotes, and in his popular keynote presentations, Brian reveals the key decisions we all must make in order to be consistently successful, regardless of our challenges. As a coach, professional workshop facilitator, and keynote presenter who's been wowing audiences since he was 17, Brian has become increasingly known for his story of resilience in the face of learning and physical disabilities, to become a #1 best-selling author and successful engineer. So please welcome Brian King.
Ironic that the stage they provided is not wheelchair accessible. So if it'd make you all more comfortable, let's form a semicircle and sing Kumbaya. Or you can just squeeze in real tight. One of the things I have is raging ADHD, which means my thoughts are like bubbles all over the air. I'll randomly pop them. But one thing I'm really good at doing is bringing it all together so it all makes sense. So expect this to be a journey that's unpredictable in some ways, that has a lot of maze-like turns, but it all gets us to the same destination. And you are going to be heavily involved in this, because I want this to be a conversation. I want it to be a discussion, because if we're going to be talking about relationships, let's have one. If we're going to be talking about real-time, unstructured interactions between human beings, let's have them, so we can see how it works in real time. Who's game? Yeah. You know, the cowards are in the back. So the first question I have for you is, what do you think is the foundational ingredient in having successful relationships? Communication's a real big term. Can we get more specific?
Honesty. Trust.
Honesty, trust. One more, listening. There's one that's even more foundational than that. You must love yourself. You must have that essential value of yourself as a human being. A person that feels like they have no value, is this somebody that's going to reach out, be proactive, and want to meet other people? Or are they going to think they're wasting everybody's time? So in order to love yourself, what do you need to believe about yourself? That you're capable?
You're valued.
You're valued, you're worthy? How do you achieve that? Is it when other people compliment you?
No, just surround yourself around people that's pouring into you.
Okay, so surrounding yourself with people that support you. Have you ever met somebody on the spectrum, or any human being for that matter, that doesn't like to take a compliment?
Yes.
Are you one of those people? Why do you think this happens? What's that? You don't think you're worthy of a compliment. You disagree with it. Because your belief about your own value is not congruent with that other person's compliment. They might as well be telling you a bold-faced lie. So the question then becomes, what is your belief about your value, and why did you go with that? Because we can believe anything we want, right? So why do you go with that? Are there any bonuses to that? Do you love the results that go along with thinking that you're a worthless piece of crap? One of the reasons we do that is because we mistakenly believe that we have immaculate perception when it comes to the way the universe works. We believe that our perceptions are a reflection of reality. That this is the way things are. If I decide I'm a piece of garbage, it must be right. Because I see things as they are. Anybody else think that way? That they're right a lot of the time? or need to be right a lot of the time? No one in this room, surely. But it's that essential mistake that you see things more clearly than anyone else that leads you to accept these beliefs without question. And people on the autism spectrum that crave certainty and crave predictability, when they find something that makes sense to them, they hold on to it for dear life. We see it in the form of inflexibility. Question?
Yes, but that's hardly an autistic trait. It's a human trait.
It's absolutely a human trait. One thing you're going to see is that the things I talk about generalize very well to the rest of humanity. Because when you're dealing with somebody on the autism spectrum, what are you dealing with? A person. A person that has a unique set of needs that have been pathologized by the medical community. That's why it's a diagnosis. Because they decided that this core set of traits is problematic. Why? Because it violates that imaginary norm that statisticians came up with to validate their existence. That was supposed to be funny. It was a lot funnier in my head. Yeah. So it's an imaginary norm that people claim exists, but you can find absolutely no examples of in humanity because we're all different. And I love that you pointed that out. Thank you. So where was I before that? This is an ADHD moment, by the way. It happens. Why do we believe what we do about ourselves? A lot of this discussion is going to be around beliefs, specifically core beliefs. Our core beliefs sound like this. I am, people are, the world is. They are the core beliefs because they determine how we see ourselves in relationship to the universe. And they guide everything we do, everything we feel. So you're dealing with people who have a lot of core beliefs about who they are in relationship to the world, what other people are like, and what they can expect from the world. So you'll hear things like other people are mean, other people can't be trusted, other people are jerks. If those are their core beliefs, how much success are you going to have teaching them social skills? And you're going to call them resistant. Don't you want to have friends? Don't you want to go out there and fit in and be part of the world? Not if it means I have to deal with jerks. But they don't articulate what their core belief is because they might not even be aware of it. But their behavior tells you that there's something in there that does not agree with what it is you're looking to teach them. You ask them to put themselves out there. Be somebody, be different. But if they think, but I don't matter. But every time I do that, I get humiliated, I get laughed at. Why on earth would I want to be reminded of what I already know? I'm useless. So they're not going to put themselves out there. They'll find reasons not to do it. The world is dangerous. Hey son, let's go out and explore the world. Let's go to the mall. Let's go to McDonald's and get your favorite burger. No, I'm fine, I'm not hungry. I'll just stay home. Can you bring it here? The world is dangerous. So in order to open their minds up to the idea that things can be different, you need to know, one, these core beliefs exist. You need to know how they're worded. I am, people are, the world is. So that you can target those in working with them. You have to find out what their present assessment is of what their options are. If their options are only to mess up, get hurt, they're not going to want to take any risks at all. They're going to want to be isolated in one room with the shades pulled with their favorite video game. Because that's safe. So you got to start cracking away the shell. So when they say no to something, hey, do you want to do this? Hey, do you want to go there? No, I'm fine, I want to stay here. You ask this question. What problem will it cause you to do this thing? To go with me to the mall, what problem will this cause you? Well, I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, so would you like to have a plan? Sure. Well, let's discuss what we would like to make happen. The more certainty you add to it, as much as you can, helps take some of the risk away, some of the fear. And very important is that you frame this plan in the terms of we, what we will do. Not, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and you can just come along. Because we want kids to be self-determined. I don't like independent because it's a lie. I didn't get here independent of this wheelchair, independent of my car, independent of the roads that were put down for me by somebody else. Interdependent is what we are. So we need to teach them self-determination within the context of a cooperative relationship. We are going to do this. This is our plan. Because this is their first introduction to reciprocity, which is one of the R's I'll be talking about. There are 5 of them. Reciprocity is one of them. The quicker you get your child understanding that they operate in units. It's not me, it's not you, it's we. And we'll get more into that. Is this making sense so far? Would it be possible for somebody to grab me a cup of water? I've put on a chapstick, but it just ain't doing the job. When I was a kid, back in the 70s and 80s, nobody knew squat about a lot of these learning disabilities. Oh, I got 2 now. That's my turn into a wet t-shirt contest. Awesome. As you can tell, I do have some issues with impulse control when it comes to statements like the throw out. It also helps reduce the amount of boredom that might occur. So what was I talking about?
Growing up, you were a child.
When I was a child. I was born in the wonderful state of infancy. My parents were young and dumb. Neither of my parents ever had a boyfriend or a girlfriend. They were very socially awkward, found each other married, and promptly began a family that they had no idea how to raise. Now we know my dad has Asperger's and my mom has ADHD. Think that my dad has the same dyslexia I do. They managed to start a business where my mom was the social face and my dad did all the work, and they had that business for over 20 years and managed to raise 4 kids. Now that was the monetary side. The family side was a free-for-all. They really did not know what to do with us. My older 2 brothers, I know my oldest brother has Asperger's, though he won't admit it. My second oldest brother has ADHD, and he is brilliant in the things that he does, but he is socially awkward off the charts. And my sister just likes to shop. She missed those genes for some reason. And a lot of the junk got piled into me. But I also inherited the family stubbornness. That if I want to do something, it's gonna get done. That's my father. This is a man who was working in an attic one day. He drove a nail through the soft part of his hand, but he wasn't done. So he wrapped it in duct tape and kept going. So I think centrally speaking, he was hyposensitive when it came to pain. Because I would have been writhing and demanding a helicopter, cart me out of here. So school was very, very hard for me. Academically, I was always told, Brian, pay attention, Brian, pay attention. That's the one thing I heard the most from teachers. All through high school, K through 12, Brian, pay attention. If I couldn't understand the homework, I should pay attention better in class. If I did the assignment wrong, you shouldn't rush through it. I wasn't motivated enough. I was too daydreamy. It's not my fault that the squirrels are more entertaining than the lecturer. It's just kind of how I'm wired. I didn't know why I was having difficulty. I wanted to be successful. I tried harder than anybody could ever imagine. I just couldn't produce. So I grew up feeling that I was stupid. I was always several steps behind the other students. And there was nobody except my mother contradicting that belief. She couldn't prove it to me that I wasn't stupid. All she could do was encourage me. But I had too much concrete evidence that I was stupid. That's why it was a lot easier to believe that instead of her. Where's the proof, Mom? I'm a great kid. I'm smart. I can do anything. Where's the proof? You see why those two things collide? We like evidence. We like things to be concrete. We will go where the evidence takes us. I was suicidal a couple times growing up. In fact, when I was 15 years old, I tried it. Took a bottle of pills. After I did it, I thought, what the hell did I just do? So I told my sister, who told my parents. They ran to the Walgreens, got a bottle of Ipecac, made me chuck it, puked all the pills back up. Because I felt like I was a worthless piece of crap. Because there was so much evidence that I wasn't loved and I wasn't valued. Fortunately, throughout my life, there were people that showed up at different points who saw that I was struggling, saw that I had needs, and made the point of sitting with me, connecting with me as an individual, and offering their help. In third grade, it was an art teacher. In junior high, it was a study hall teacher. In high school, it was a special ed teacher. And in college, the first time, there was nobody except this really self-centered bitch of a professor who they eventually let go. But it was so bad there that I left college for many years before I decided to come back. And I had a couple more mentors there. People that knew there was something different about me and I needed an extra hand. Having that one person that would take the time and offer me concrete guidance that I could use to create better results than I was getting helped me keep going. Not just encouragement, tools. Otherwise, you're just a cheerleader. And as much as you would like to think that helps, it's not enough. So when I started having kids of my own, following my parents' pattern, I found a fellow wallflower. We got married quickly and got pregnant right away. We've since divorced. And as was mentioned in the beginning, I have 3 boys with Asperger's and ADHD. And the reason for the chair is I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And if you're not familiar with that, it's an inherited connective tissue disorder that's making my ligaments and my tendons so weak that my joints are not stable enough to hold my body steady. So I fall a lot. Yes?
Sorry, is there any possibility of a genetic connection to that spectrum? Just one of those things where they're next to each other on the same chromosome?
One thing that's weird, as you mentioned, is there some kind of genetic relationship. In recent years, many geneticists who diagnose this condition have noticed that many of their patients also have an autism spectrum diagnosis. So how they are related, nobody knows, but there is some correlation. So if you got a kid that's really clumsy and really bendy, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. EHLERS-Danlos, DANLOS. Something to look into. Because the kids that are really bendy, you notice they're walking and their ankle rolls a lot. They're bumping into things all the time. It might not be a motor issue that can be fixed by an OT. It might be Ehlers-Danlos. So explore both. That was a delightfully educational tangent, don't you think? But my youngest 2 inherited the Ehlers-Danlos, and my oldest inherited the dyslexia. So I'm passing on the family tradition of recessive genes. Here you go. But what I use all of that stuff for is, and this comes down to beliefs again, so please pay attention to this. I've decided that all of this crap, the undiagnosed learning disabilities, my graduation present from high school, can anybody guess what that was? Those who don't know my story. My graduation present from high school was stage 3 testicular cancer. So I spent the summer in chemotherapy instead of planning for the future. So at some point I needed to decide, am I going to be a victim, feel bitter, hate the world for the rest of my life, or I'm going to make this useful? And for a while I did spend my time wallowing in it. Feeling like, why me? How dare? What did I do wrong? I didn't like those results. So what I decided was to take each of those events and consider them a teacher. That each one of those showed up and said, okay, this is the obstacle. What do you need to learn? What skills do you need to master? What new people do you need to bring into your life to get over this or get through it? Now that I ask myself those questions every time, when a new teacher shows up, I know exactly what plan I need to follow to get through it. Instead of throwing my hands up and saying, oh, this sucks, this is unexpected, and oh, this is not what you told me was going to happen, I can't trust you. My question is, what does this teach us? What opportunities does it present it with? And one of those opportunities is not how fast can we quit. It is not an option. It is an opportunity, and here comes another R, it's an opportunity to be resourceful. Resourcefulness is all about finding new strategies, new knowledge, new solutions. One of the things we really want to get in these kids is a love of discovery. To be curious about what's going to happen. One of my beliefs is that bad things don't happen. Things go one of two ways in your life. They go the way you planned, or they go different. Just because it goes other than planned, does that mean it went wrong? Does it mean it went bad? That's the common thinking. But what kind of options are provided to you by thinking something went bad? Anybody have that paradigm at the moment? Anybody seeing somebody operating with that paradigm? So when they think it went bad, it went wrong, how do they behave?
Very negative.
Very negative? What kind of things do they say?
I'm not good at that. I'm a bad person.
Yeah. I'm not good at that. I'm so stupid, right? I'm never going to do that again.
I live with someone who has a very, very negative lens through which she views events. Not always.
You live with someone like that.
Well, I live with someone like that, and my wife has spent a lot of time kind of doing this, like, Socratic dialogue with them to kind of talk them around. And like, okay, let's take this event apart and see if there is really any malevolence involved.
So you try and use logic to help them change their mind, the Socratic method. How effective has that been?
Sometimes.
Sometimes it helps.
It's sometimes the best we got to work with. You know, in your car, you can't,
Right.
there are things you can't logically parse, but it's what you're trying to do sometimes.
My recommendation is to go right after the belief. So if they're saying, I'm never going to do this again, it went wrong, my question to them is, how do you benefit from believing that? You believe it was bad. You believe that you're dumb. You believe that it's a bad idea to ever try that again. How do you benefit from believing that? Because most people don't realize that they've decided what things mean. Because again, that immaculate perception, they believe the way they decided it means is absolutely correct, and that's simply the way it is. Got to get them to question that belief. What do you get from believing that? What kind of options does it give you? It gives you the option to quit, to think you're stupid? To think that you should never do this again? So much for taking risks. So much for trial and learning. But if you neutralize it, it goes my way or it goes different. Different is neutral. There's no emotional trigger in different. And what's really cool about that is you always know what's going to happen. It's always going to go one of two ways. If it goes the way I want, this is how I'm going to deal with it. If it goes different, this is how I'm going to deal with it. Try it sometime. I did this with my kids. My oldest kid, when he was younger, was one of the most anal people you'd ever meet. He would melt down if the teacher changed the schedule. I was able to help him loosen up by giving him, okay, all right, Zach, this is what we're going to do. It's going to go the way we planned. Let's review the plan, or it's going to go different. If it goes different, what are you going to do? I'm going to be mad. Okay, that's one way you can deal with it. Is that how you want to be? Do you want to be mad? No. How do you want to be? I want to be happy. So if it goes different, how can you be happy? Well, by knowing what we might do instead. Okay, let's create a plan. Plan B. If it goes different, what are we going to do then? Creating some kind of plan gave him that certainty, gave him a sense of safety. And because he had that plan, instead of just my way or the highway, he began to loosen up. Imagine how well that can serve you in relationships. When you need to be open to other ideas, other points of view. So you can go to a conversation knowing, well, they could be interested in Pokemon at the age of 30, or they might be interested in something else. How do I plan for either eventuality? Am I going to just monologue the whole time and tell them everything I know about Pokemon? Or I'm going to be prepared to ask some questions if they happen to be interested in something that I'm unfamiliar with. Instead of saying, I don't want to talk about that, it's boring. That really doesn't facilitate human connection. So they can prepare just by starting out with those two options. What if it goes the way I planned? What if it goes different? One thing that our minds can really benefit from is simplicity. Anybody ever seen those charts with those circle smiley faces and there's like 60 different emotions and you're supposed to know what they are? Half the time I don't know what the heck I'm feeling. Now I'm supposed to look at this little circle with a face that says bashful or embarrassed. And I'm supposed to transplant that to a human face, which it has no resemblance to whatsoever. And with my limited working memory, I'm supposed to go through the file of 60 faces and figure out what this one is. I would laugh hysterically, but I might wet myself. It's an absolutely absurd expectation. Your hand was up.
Which is why the things like the t-shirts with someone like Tina Belcher on Bob Burgers, where it's all the different emotions and the face is completely the same, both of them. So, okay, I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, I have a Darth Vader t-shirt that's something like Darth Vader's feelings, and it says sad, angry, and it's the same face at every split. Because that's pretty much how it looks most of the time. And here's an important rule to understand about people on the spectrum. If they don't do it, they don't see it either. If they don't make facial expressions, they don't see them. Because they learn a lot of these things. They do learn some things through modeling. You know, one thing that Michael John and I have is difficulty with voice modulation. I tend to get really loud when I'm talking. And sometimes I catch myself, sometimes I don't. Why is he the only one asking questions? No, you're asking awesome questions. And I want you to continue to do so. But I don't want you to let everybody else off the hook. You're asking beautiful questions, please do.
Has reminded me that because, despite being a district in the spectrum, I'm also a white male who has been, if was never basically told to put his hand down in class and let the boys talk or whatever. So I was never socialized to not ask questions, and I kind of might want to let other people who perhaps are not doing who is instinctively talking right.
Well, basically what you just explained, which was wonderful, is that you learn to socialize according to the boundaries that were set for you by other people. If they never told you, don't blurt out answers, you're going to keep doing it.
Yes.
Because you didn't get feedback. So what was I talking about before that?
Oh, I was about to ask you a question about, it seemed like anime, and then we kind of agreed we should let other people talk.
Darth Vader's face, okay. If they don't see it, they don't do it. I do not use a lot of facial expressions to communicate my feelings. I do it with my voice. Have you noticed any inflection as I've been talking here? So I tune into what a person says, how they say it, what's their tone. I do not look at their face to tell me. I've learned over the years some basics of if their face changes in a certain way, it may be happy or it may be sad, but it has to be really obvious. I really don't catch the subtleties. So what do? Do I learn to master the 60 faces chart? Do I get yet another book on reading body language and try and memorize that? So I can take my one thing at a time brain and try and hear them, see them, and remember everything that I read in that book and apply it to this situation. I have the working memory of a fly. I'm not going to remember all that stuff. Anybody unfamiliar with what working memory is? Okay? Working memory in a nutshell is that part of our frontal lobe, it's relatively new, evolutionarily speaking, that allows you to hold the information you need to execute what you're doing now. Think of it as reading the instructions of how to put together a shelf. You've got to hold those instructions in your brain long enough to execute. You also need to be able to retrieve memories of a previous time you've put something together, so you can combine that knowledge to do it competently. My working memory is in the 3rd percentile. So my memory is only better than 3% of the population. I can maybe remember 3 things, but not for very long. If I'm reading instructions, I look at the instruction on the page, then I move to do it and I've already forgotten it. This would happen in school a lot. I would look at the board, go to write it down, and forget what I just read. So I would do it one word at a time. I would always be behind with my notes. Imagine how this works in a conversation. Somebody's telling you all about their life, telling you about this new thing they just did, and by the time they're done, you remember maybe the last sentence they said. What the heck do you do? Because if you were really interested, you would have paid attention. If you really cared, you'd remember what I said. How did I find what out? Oh, I was tested, yeah. There were so many tests, I can't remember the names, some psychological gobbledygook. The standard on an IQ test. I was also told that I'm in 99.6 percentile in verbal ability. It would have been 100%, but I was too slow on one of the tests. So I leverage my verbal ability to help other people understand.
Great to have another verbal auditory.
Amen. Verbal auditory learners of the world, unite. You can take your PowerPoints and your different pictures. They just do nothing for me.
So then how do you retain your spatial communication?
My spatial abilities suck. My wife asked me, what do you think of this color? I'm colorblind, dear, remember? Or do you think it looks good in this position? How the heck would I know? She wants to hang pictures. Would it look good here? Compared to what? I have no idea. Yeah, she keeps asking me. I have no idea about the visual spatial stuff. I bump into stuff that's been in the same place for 5 years. Don't ask me about placement. Ask my youngest, who has no glasses, no color blindness, but a very strong opinion. Ask him where he would like these things. It's a much better resource for you. So if they don't do it, they don't see it. A kid that stands with his arms by his side and doesn't move his body when he's talking to you is not going to read your body language. A kid who is monotone is not going to understand the tone of your voice. I once worked with a mother and son, and the mother said, "Can't you tell that I'm upset just by the way I'm talking?" No. And I asked her, "Have you ever listened to him when he talks to you? Have you noticed that he's monotone the whole time?" "Well, yes. What does that have to do with it?" He doesn't receive vocal inflection. It's not on his radar. He's missing that. So the two of you need to figure out a workaround so he knows when you're upset. So what do you think the workaround is if you can't spot body language, if you can't read their facial cues, if you don't have the auditory acuity that I do and you can't pick it up from their tone of voice, what do? Do you assume? Do you mind read? Do you try and exercise some perspective taking and put yourself in their shoes? How many of you have made an assumption, read somebody else's mind, and it really screwed you? Okay, so let's avoid that.
How many people here remembers the Homo sapiens species? Bible has that. We do it. We all do it.
Yeah, we all do it. What kind of results do we get?
We tend to have wars and stuff like that, and
There are wars. There are tweets. When there are misunderstandings, when there are hurt feelings, because of a lot of assumptions are being made. We change the topic. What I've learned to do over the years, and this is a revolutionary concept, you ready? Ask. So I will say something to another person. I'm not sure how it was taken by that person. So I'll ask, what are your thoughts about that? Or how do you feel about this? They will tell you. You don't need to read their body language. You don't need to read their mind. Ask. Imagine how less exhausting that will be for somebody who misses all this stuff than to try and figure out all of that stuff that their brain simply doesn't pick up. Ask. But our social norms don't teach us that. Why don't we ask? Why are we socialized not to ask? Sometimes you don't want to know the answer. Like, why would you communicate something to a person and not want to know what the answer is? You don't know? Sometimes we tell them something and we are afraid we hurt their feelings. So we don't want to know we just did that.
Young people are taught too that it's really polite to ask questions.
Yeah, we have a belief. This is beautiful. Thank you for bringing that up. You have a belief that it's rude to ask questions over and over again. In other words, there's a belief that clarification is bad. One core human need is the need to be heard, to be understood. And if you have a lousy working memory, you will often need something repeated to you because you missed so much. During the testing I got, the doc described my attention as a toddler playing with a light switch. On, off, on, off, on, off. I tune in and out that fast. So I catch little bits and pieces of what a person's saying. It's like a broken ticker tape. So I need to ask people to repeat themselves. But how do I bypass that belief that it's rude to ask them to repeat themselves? Because if they have that belief, they might see things, I don't like repeating myself. You should have been listening the first time. Mm-hmm.
If your attention span is that short, how do you successfully do presentations like that?
I'm doing it off the top of my head.
How do you go?
She's asking, how do I do presentations like this with a bad working memory? Because I know my stuff. So I say one thing and something else comes to it. I am the world's leading authority in my own opinion. I'm very in touch with it. So what was I talking about?
How do you ask questions without
Yeah, asking questions. How do you get past that belief? And someone that believes I shouldn't have to repeat myself. That's my belief. You should have been listening the first time. That's my belief. You need to negotiate a new way to do that so you can get the information you need without the other person becoming upset. This is how you do it. I really want to hear what you had to say, and I want to make sure that I show you the respect of understanding you the way you meant to be understood. Would you mind repeating that part that you said? So you let them know this is how I'm going to meet an important need of yours, the need to be heard. I'm going to meet that need by asking you to repeat yourself. Very few people will pass up on that request. Just appeal to their ego. People want their opinions heard. You see how that can work? And it also works particularly well with the prickly kind of people that tend to be very defensive. I've spent the last 20 years or so obsessed with communication, with relationships, because I was so lousy at it as a kid. I felt like the rest of the world was going on without me. I was always on the outside looking in. And when I found out I had boys with the same problem, and I realized that if they went into the world unprepared, that world would eat them alive. So I had to master this stuff so I could teach it to them so they could be successful. It turns out I'm able to articulate the stuff so well that folks began asking me to come and do things like this. Isn't this fun? So we've talked about resourcefulness. We've talked about reciprocity. Let's talk about responsibility. Responsibility is that 100% ownership of everything you put into the world and of every perception that you have. There's no room for blame. There's no room for excuses, for rationalizations. You need to own it. Because if you own it, you can change it. You are never a victim when you are 100% responsible. How you decided it meant, the words you chose out of your mouth, it's all on you. But it doesn't mean you are to blame if something goes different. That's one of the reasons people on the spectrum, or anybody for that reason, might avoid taking responsibility, because they believe that responsibility and blame are synonymous. Where do you think they learned that? You better take responsibility for your actions, young man. You're in real trouble now. Who's responsible for this mess? Whoever takes responsibility gets punished. Where's the upside of being responsible? But then we tell kids, you need to be responsible for your own life. Holy cow. If that's a one-sided deal, how are successes supposed to feel? They really have no paradigm for that. They don't see responsibility for taking actions that created a positive result. A lot of folks think that their successes happen by accident. Oh, I was lucky. That's just the way it went. Oh, you're giving me too much credit. They don't think about how to make successes happen again. They think about how to prevent mistakes from happening again because they don't want to take responsibility for them. So now you want to teach them skills that they can take responsibility for in relationships, and they want no part of it. They don't want to be blamed for somebody else's hurt feelings, for being too blunt, for doing something that upset Aunt Mary. But if they thought of responsibility in terms of taking proactive action to create consistent results that move their life forward, I imagine they'd want to be part of that. And one thing that I did with confidence, which I'm glad has been a theme so far, is I tweaked what the definition meant so that it felt more powerful for me and the people I teach it to. I see confidence as the certainty that you can take consistent action and create outcomes whether they are preferred or not preferred. If I do certain things that lead to me falling hard on the ground, I bet you I could do that again. Because I made specific decisions. Don't use your cane, don't use your walker, be a stubborn mule, you will fall. That's predictable. I can be confident in my ability to do that over and over and over again. I can also create preferred results the exact same way. Take a different set of steps over and over and over again, create a preferred result. Always be confident, no matter what outcomes you create. So teach confidence in that way to anybody, on the spectrum or not. And there's less risk for taking chances, because either outcome is useful, and there's no shame. No shame in unpreferred outcomes. It's just information. Information that tells me what steps I took to create that outcome. It's back to that idea of discovery. Let's put ourselves out there in the social sphere, get some feedback, see what happens, and learn from that. Responsibility, resourcefulness, reciprocity. Now let's think of these in terms of a mathematical equation. Responsibility plus resourcefulness plus reciprocity minus reactivity. How many people do you know that are really defensive? Because they are mentally, emotionally reactive. They immediately associate what happened with hurt, pain, danger. They stop thinking and go pure emotion. How does that kind of response impact your relationships? You avoid them. You will avoid people that respond that way. Or you will avoid interactions because you are afraid you will be hurt. So if you have a lot of beliefs that people are mean, I might say something dumb, and then when it does happen, the way you feared, you react strongly. Meltdown, temper tantrum, swearing, ranting of some kind. That reactivity ruins everything. If you have that emotional and mental reactivity, no matter what skills you have, it sabotages everything. So there are certain beliefs that you need to have in order to not succumb to reactivity. The first one is to understand or believe that if you are upset by something somebody else said, you may have gotten it wrong. As opposed to that assumption of immaculate perception. I understood you correctly. I heard the word you used. You can't take it back now. Like you think that you understand what they meant better than they did. You're the Sherlock Holmes of meaning. So you have to have the belief that if I start getting upset, I may have gotten it wrong, I need to check in, I need to clarify. You know what, I'm not sure about what you just said. I want to make sure I took it the correct way. Did you mean it like this? If you do that, what are the chances the other person is going to say, oh, thank you so much for checking in. I didn't mean it that way, let me rephrase it. That will happen a lot of the time. But it begins by taking responsibility for the meaning you placed on their language. And the responsibility for it clarifying. Learning reactivity is something the entire world needs to prioritize. There's too much of it. Too much energy being put into being offended, being right. Being offended is not a life skill. It's not useful in relationships. It's not useful in problem solving. It is useful in you stroking your own ego. It's useful in creating a sense of self-righteousness. It ain't about you. It's about us. How can we connect effectively with each other as often as possible? And when you take that equation I've just given you, responsibility plus resourcefulness plus reciprocity minus reactivity, it equals resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce forward in response to any resistance or obstacle. I'm not interested in bouncing back. Bouncing back to me sounds like I'm back to where I started. I'm not going to go through all this crap to go back to where I started. I want to make some progress. So I want to bounce forward. I want to have new knowledge, new skills, and new people in my life. So my life is stronger. So I can be more resourceful with this new information. That I can take responsibility for more challenges. That I am strengthened, my character is strengthened by the wonderfully supportive and reciprocal relationships that I have with other people that make me better. Because every human being has something in common. We all have strengths, we all have challenges. And what's beautiful is when we surround ourselves by people that complement us, meaning the strengths I have are of value to you, and the strengths you have are of value to me. We're like complementary puzzle pieces. If you are surrounded by people you are in competition with, you're surrounded by the wrong people. Because you're both trying to be alpha. Who's best at this? It doesn't help. It does not help bring us together. Stronger when we complement one another. Works great in marriages. Works great in classrooms. It works great when creating teams, whether that's at a library or it's at a school setting, a sales team in a company. Bring complementary people together and that synergy will be explosive. See how having all of these different pieces together really helps us grow in a very less threatening, more collaborative way. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together, folks. It's the only way we're going to make it. And I've given you a few ideas today that I hope have been useful. And I want you to write down my email address, because even though these folks have beautifully decided to video record this, so I'm very grateful for it, I've also audio recorded the whole thing. And if you'd like a copy of the audio recording, just send me an email. My email is brian@brianraymondking.com. It's been an honor spending this time with you. I appreciate you. Oh, I still have my mic on. Oh, that mic is for them.
For them.
Must we answer questions?
Okay, so anyone have some questions for Brian?
Don't be shy.
Okay. Make sure I get my exercise today, right?
Well,
Are we on? Oh, we are.
We're on.
So the presentation says there are 5 R's, but I heard 3 R's. So what were the 5 R's again?
Who got all 5?
Plus responsibility.
Well, if you're going to talk over each other,
All right, reciprocity, responsibility.
I'll give you 2 in order. Responsibility plus resourcefulness. I said responsibility for the first one, right? Yes. Responsibility plus resourcefulness plus reciprocity minus reactivity equals resilience. And that's the only kind of math I enjoy. The rest I delegate to my accountant.
I'm with you on that one.
Amen.
Other questions, hands, and I'll find them.
Hope you're wearing a Fitbit, man. You're putting in some serious numbers today.
When you said you've had your low moments and that a lot of this was you coming to it on your own in a way, how do you, like, let's see, how do you, if you are family, from a family member perspective, you know that like everything you said was great, you wish that would, like, someone could come to terms or think about this in the way you think about it, because it would just make their lives so much, they would just progress like amazingly, skyrocket, and you know that as a family member. How do you, what can a family member do to encourage like your sort of thinking, I guess? I mean, is it just
How can a family
something
member
that-
encourage it for somebody else on the spectrum?
Yeah, like, well, I don't know, I wouldn't, I don't, it's not diagnosing, so I can't really say that, but
Well, whether it's diagnosed or not, you identify what the issue is.
yes. Yeah.
So one of the
I have
keys
an
is
idea.
you need to model it.
Right.
So the very things that I've suggested, in terms of clarification, I want to make sure that I understood you the way you wanted to be understood. Would you please repeat what you just said? You are modeling to that person that it's okay to do that in interactions. You teach them to do it.
Right. I'm saying like mindset wise. Like,
Well, mindset-wise, like I mentioned, I gave a couple examples of how you go after the core belief. And remember that you're going to understand the core belief by the way it's phrased. I am, people are, the world is. I'm so dumb. I always screw up. So when they say that, you ask them, how does it help you to believe that? Because if you can help them identify that they chose this belief, then they have the option to choose a new one. That's how you open the conversation up that there is improvement that can occur. And then you model for yourself. This has worked beautifully in my own household. My wife and I will model this deliberately. Say, man, why did I do that? Why did I do it that way? Or you say, I'm sorry I got upset, kids. I mistakenly believed this. It's not your fault. I'm going to do this from now on. So I've walked them through my thought process. I've modeled how to take responsibility. I've modeled apologizing. And I've modeled how to be resilient and move forward. So you model it concretely, constantly. And that's how you begin teaching it to the kids.
Question? Stay up front for a little bit now.
More of a reflection from someone that was on the answering end of a question this morning. And this person said to me, could I just, that's very good, but could I just ask you to, ... And it was so simple. And so I was kind of thinking about that self-determination, independence versus interdependence piece. And I know there's prickly people out there, but honestly, when you mentioned the thing about asking, it was kind of like a light bulb went on. On the receiving end of being asked, it was no big deal. I mean, it was a joy to, oh yes, I'm happy to do this for you. This helps you succeed, this helps us succeed, this helps all of us get to our goal.
You don't happen to be in a service profession, do you?
That's a personality.
Yeah, if you're in a service profession and somebody asks you to get help, are you going to say, what are you doing, you lazy bum? Do it yourself. You're not going to give them that kind of response. You want to be of service.
The thing is, sometimes the questions you got to respond to can be kind of hostile, and it doesn't necessarily justify, well, I don't think justify is the right word, but wisdom might dictate that you don't respond in kind. If somebody, you talk about offensiveness shutting things down, okay, it does, but if somebody says you offended me or said something offensive to me, you might want to hear them out. You might learn something.
Yeah, I have a response to when somebody becomes offended. I ask them, what did you hear me say? So I invite them to tell me what meaning they assign to the words I used, so that I have the opportunity to then give it another shot. Yeah. People interpret things differently. Just because the dictionary says one thing doesn't mean that's all how we use that language.
So you give the opportunity to clarify.
Give me the opportunity to clarify.
Anyone have other questions for Brian?
We got 50 seconds.
I can get 10,000 more steps in before the day's up.
What he can do is put a nice spiral on the mic and shoot it to the back of the room.
Okay. Get one last question.
One last question.
Someone else does. Anyone else? Sure.
Now is your chance.
No one else raised their hand, so go for it.
I tried. One thing I'm noticing here is a broader perspective is important because people talk about human nature as if it were something that was always fixed and never changed, and we are all to some degree probably guilty of thinking that the way things are, the way we grew up with is the way things are, always have been, ever shall be, in every place and time. It's travel, if that's your thing, which is for some people, not for me, but if you're not travel though, read, study history, study sociology, find out that things were not always as they are now, and for better and for worse, and consider that things are not fixed. Human nature is not fixed.
Yeah, so in many ways we are inviting an evolution in human communication. You learned it one way, let's try it like this and see what kind of results we get. And when we find that it works really well for both of us, we'll keep doing it. It's my thinking at least. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Brian.